Hey guys, welcome to the Fast Life Garage. And in today's video, I want to give you guys a complete walkthrough shop tour. And I want to give you a little bit of a backstory to how I got into this space and how I developed it to the space that you see here before you. It wasn't like this when I got here. It was a lot of work. And in this video, we're going to go over the whole thing. So let's get started. So to give you guys a bit of the history of this shop, I moved into this space in December of 2016. I was heavily a part of the big wheel bagger world, painting them, building them, and even riding them across the country. The longer and deeper I was in that world, the more I didn't really feel like I fit in. In 2014, I got the opportunity to start flying to Northern California, the Bay Area, to do custom paint jobs, provide the artwork, graphics, airbrush, pinstriping for a good buddy up there who runs a shop called Trendsetters. And it led me to falling in love with the Dyna and FXR and more the performance Harley culture. I wasn't just enamored with the machines, the bikes themselves, but the actual scene that surrounded it, the culture. I felt like I fit more in with that world, the style of bike, the style of individual. It was a whole package that really just kind of embodied who I felt like I already was. And it was an easy kind of transition, if you will, to jump into that space and, enjoy it and feel like I fit in. I found a tribe, if you will. So reluctantly, I wanted to move away from the big wheel bagger scene. The door was wide open for the Dyna and FXR culture, especially here in Texas. As I've been an established painter at this point, an established brand, I was walking into a motorcycle scene that had no idea who I was. My thought process was to go on Instagram, put it out there, tag all the major pages, and offer up to paint 7 FXR Dyna-esque bikes for $1,000 a piece. Within a week for sure, I had every one of those spots booked, and I only lived 2 miles away at the time, so I would bring the parts here, prep them, base coat them, take them home, lay out all the graphics, do any of the detail work, the airbrush work, pinstriping, bring it back here, clear coat it, polish it, ship it out to the customer, done deal. I was starting to walk the path that I've kind of been on for the last 8 years, essentially painting and doing the work that I got to do to make enough money to live the life that I want to live on motorcycles. And that's been a really great balance since then. In January of 2017, I started my first FXR build in the garage at my house. I had my motorcycle lift there, all my tools, and it was set up to be able to build the bike there. And like I had mentioned before, bring all the parts here to prep and paint. My goal for this build was to get it done by June, to be able to ride it up to San Francisco area, see some of the guys that actually inspired me to want to jump on these type of motorcycles, and then ride it down the coast to Southern California to attend the Born Free show. I got a phone call from the landlord while I was at Born Free. He was letting me know that the guy that was leasing the shop that I was subleasing it from decided to just dip out. He skipped out on the rent, took all his shit out of here. The landlord offered me the chance to take over the lease, and it would just be my shop, the whole space, right? By the time that this happened, I was in a much better place to be able to afford to pay the increase in the rent and bring all my stuff out of the garage and set it up here and to begin a more permanent stay here at the shop. I started the podcast in January of 2018, and a lot of the episodes were recorded right here on the floor behind me. We just set up a table, put some microphones out there, and went to town. Late 2019, I really wanted to bring a video element to the podcast, which opened up a whole can of worms of things I needed to learn how to do, set up, operate, the whole 9 yards. Doing a video podcast requires a lot of video production equipment, computers, cameras, switchers, audio boards. While I've always kept my shop very clean, one of the biggest issues with having all of this computer equipment just open to the elements is all the dust and metal shavings and different things that are flying through the air if the door is open. It just would cake up the inside of these computers and possibly cause them to, go bad or overheat or just completely crash on me. So initially I considered renting a small office space that I could possibly turn into a small studio. After about a month or so of looking around, I really came to the conclusion that I just really couldn't afford the extra rent and the extra utilities that would be added to my already existing monthly expenses here at the shop. What it made me realize is that I had the space on top of the existing paint booth that was already here to build up. I didn't really consider that for the first go around. I just kept sitting here and looking and seeing all this open space that used to be here and go, man, I could probably put a studio above my paint booth and just open up an entire new space to work out of in the shop. I'm no carpenter, but I do have experience kind of building stuff. I used to do a lot of things with my grandfather. I built many rooms in different shops in my last 20 years, a lot of homemade paint booths as well. And I had most of the tools I would need to be able to do this job. I gotta be honest with you, the 3-month time it took to build this space was probably one of the most fun, challenging, and exciting times of my life. I got to experience this with 2 really close friends, Hazmat Designs and Sax, who goes by Sax Media now on Instagram. These guys just kind of came around and they didn't leave. They just kept showing up every day to help me to get more done. I'm forever grateful for their help. I had a lot of homies come out and put a little bit of effort into helping us build this studio and this space above the paint booth. It just showed the community that we had built around our podcast through our campouts and all the things that we had our hands in. It was bringing people together, and it was, in my opinion, I think it was a way for a lot of these guys to give back, if you will, and just show a little love to this thing that they found, which I'm forever grateful for. For those 3 months, most of the days had me basically doing paint work and getting things dialed in for, you know, just being able to keep the ball rolling financially. And then around 3, 4 p.m., my friends would get off work, they would show up at the shop, and we'd start doing more of the construction. The weekends were all hands on deck. All the homies came out. There was lots of beer drank, and it was a great time. I really do miss it. It was something I'll cherish for the rest of my life, for sure. So before we get too deep in the podcast studio and the workspace I have up there, I want to give you guys some insight to the things that we have going on down here in the actual shop space, the dirtier side of the shop. All right, let's go. Whether you have a shop similar to mine or you do stuff out of your garage or shed in the back of your house, I think it's very important that every area that you set up to be a workspace, whether it's sanding, fabrication, podcasting, airbrushing, working on motorcycles, every one of my workstations is set up to be doing the job it's designed for within 5 minutes. Keeping things organized means that you don't have to find the tools or the materials needed to start the process in which you're trying to do. And keeping your space clean means that you don't have to clean up your space to start the project. All in all, helping you come up with the idea and start executing it as fast as possible. This helps with procrastination, it helps with cleanliness, it helps with the final outcome of your projects, and it's something I try to keep in mind in everything I do within my shop. I want to be able to think about it and immediately be doing it within 5 minutes. As you guys probably know, sanding is a big part of the whole process of doing a paint job. The dirtiest part of this entire process is right here on this table in this corner of the shop, right by the front door. So all the residue that comes off this table, all the sand dust stays kind of contained, so I can sweep it out or spray water and squeegee it out with a squeegee. I can't say enough good things about the Husky toolboxes. I picked this one up from Home Depot over the holidays, got a good deal on it. I think I paid around $700. It holds everything that I use in the preparation, the polishing, the body work, everything that I do on this table. The tools, the materials are all right there where I need it. Arm's reach. So this right side of my shop when you walk in is essentially where all of my workstations are. I have this area right here that I plan to hopefully fill with a lathe by the end of 2025. I have my sander that I use for whenever I'm doing my exhaust systems, when I want to get it clean or any kind of metal prep to do welding. My welder over in the corner, my welding table, and lift right here so that if I'm making an exhaust, I can kind of fit it up. The welder will reach, everything's good to go. It's right in arm's length. So just like my toolbox behind me with all the paint materials, I have everything I need in this welding cart over here to do whatever it is I need to do welding wise, whether it's my gloves, my tungsten, my different size cups, my purge kits, everything's contained within that welding cart, which I actually picked up at Harbor Freight for, it's probably the most money I've ever spent at Harbor Freight. It was like $600 or $400, I can't remember, but well worth the money for the internal storage that this cart has. It can carry 2 bottles. It has a place for the foot pedal, the torch, extra filler rod in the back side of it. It's a really good cart for the money, in my opinion. So also on this side of the shop, I have overhead LED lighting. I use continuous lighting LEDs. These are designed for like videos, like doing video production, you know, to kind of light up a scene. They work really great for extra angles of light to come in so that I can try to eliminate shadows as much as possible. So when you're working over something, if you have light coming from all directions, when you're looking down underneath, like you're welding or you're drawing or you're airbrushing, you don't have shadows under your hands. I have a light behind me as well that I use in the shop to kind of move around on a C-stand to light up certain areas that I'm working to make sure that I have ample lighting to do my job efficiently. So over in this dark corner of my shop is where I store all of my helmet projects, motorcycle projects, general storage, and the heart of my shop, which is my air compressor. Every shop needs a really strong air compressor, especially if you're doing paint work and running a lot of air tools. You need a good, strong air compressor to keep up with the demand that these tools are gonna require. It's also essential to keep a dryer system in line on the air compressor side of things. Moisture in the air is bad for paint work and bad for your air tools, so dryer system's a must. I could also use probably another layer of something in the line there to kind of help get more moisture out of it, but this dryer's been working fine for the last 5 years and I can't really complain about it. Paint work comes out dope. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. This here is my Snap-on toolbox. I bought this thing around 15 years ago. I financed it to be exact. It's been a good toolbox. It holds all of my wrenches, ratchets, things that I need to do mechanical things here in the shop. It holds all my specialty tools to work on Harley Davidsons. Yeah, I don't think I'll ever buy another one of these again. This was like a $10,000 toolbox, I believe. Making payments on it, I probably paid 20 grand for this thing, but yeah, never again. But I'm glad I have one. I could say I did the whole process. Of course, every shop needs an old school fridge. I was able to pick this old school fridge up in 2014, I believe, off Craigslist. I paid like 150 bucks for it. I plugged it in and it's worked ever since. I can't tell you how many times people come in here and try to buy this fridge off of me. I like the patina that's on this fridge. It's original. I've always wanted to look up and find out more about it as far as like how old it is or what year it came out. But judging by the shape and the style, it's either a late 50s or early 60s style fridge. Over 50 years later, it's still getting the job done. I do shoot a lot of photography, and this wall also acts as a backdrop. I've shot my wife, I've shot guests for the podcast, I've shot motorcycles, helmets, a lot of the things that we do here. This wall acts as a great backdrop for the photography, for the videography. The David Mann wall art, the Easy Rider centerfolds, all this stuff is a conversation piece when people come over the shop. They see David Mann's art and they go, man, I remember having that experience on a motorcycle trip once, or I've always loved this particular bike that he drew up back in the day. And to me, it just kind of creates a vibe and a tone in my shop that just breeds a little bit of creativity and artisticness. Artisticness? I don't know if that's a word. What word would that be? This is the high traffic side and the side that most people walk into, and you know, it's the other side of the shop. This area was entirely designed to accommodate all the individual crafts that go into my paintwork. We have this vinyl cutter, which I bought new in 2006. It still runs and operates today. One of the best purchases I ever made, and one of the most important things you need in a custom paint shop is to be able to operate and have a vinyl cutter. Right after the vinyl cutter, we have another Husky toolbox that I bought again during the holidays on sale. It was like 400 bucks. This thing holds all of my airbrushes, all of my pinstripe brushes, my tools needed to take apart helmets and things like that, all the different fine line tapes, the gold leaf, silver leaf, just about every tool that I need to do the job up here that I do. So up here on my desk is where I pretty much lay out a lot of graphics, do all my pinstriping, all the airbrush work, a lot of leaf work. I also have my computer that's set up underneath and a monitor up here to do all my computer generated graphics that we use for the vinyl cutter. I watch a lot of YouTube on this TV. This is kind of where I sit most of the time when I'm in the shop working. It's all set up to be a nice, comfortable area with a lot of artwork that was donated by friends. I have this really awesome pinstripe panel that was donated by my buddy Steven at Finish FX. He gifted me that panel right after we built this whole studio setup. Like I said, surrounding yourself with inspiration is a key element to being creative, in my opinion. For those of you who've watched the podcast over the years, you've seen the few different iterations we've had of the studio, the different layouts, the different camera angles, the different entire vibes that we've kind of changed over the years in order to accommodate the growth that we've had with our podcast, the growth I've had with myself, acquiring more art and more trinkets and more memorabilia from the motorcycle world that we're part of, to be able to have in here to create an environment that truly brings out and keeps the love of motorcycles in the forefront of your mind while you're sitting in this room doing podcasts. So in that area, we have a producer's table where he operates the camera, he operates the soundboard. If we're doing a live podcast, he can actually also interact with the live chat that's going on in the YouTube studio. This studio is a controlled environment. We're able to control the acoustics, the lighting, and the entire atmosphere in this space to help create the most optimal and ideal conditions to have a great conversation. Lighting and the way things sound and feel is a big part of how your mood is. When you're in a place that's very echoey, lit poorly, it kind of creates and invokes a different emotion than if you're in a nicely dim lit place where the sounds are acoustically pleasing. You just open up more. It's like being in a lounge style bar or at a very high-end restaurant. Like it all plays a part in the experience of the person and people in the space. And it opens the door for better conversations when everybody's comfortable. We try to control that and keep it professional in here, even though there's a lot of unprofessionalism that takes place on the podcast. I do want and always have strived to make sure that the podcast that we produce is at the best of the ability that I have. I'm very proud of the direction the podcast has gone in the last couple of years, and I'm very excited to bring on more guests in the studio to get the Fast Life experience. So that's gonna do it for us today here. I hope you enjoyed this shop tour and got a little bit of insight to how we went about building this space. And if you got any questions about anything you saw in the video, please drop a comment down below. I'll gladly answer what I can. If you haven't subscribed already, please consider doing so. On this channel you're viewing this video on right now, there are over 400 podcast episodes of many different aspects of the motorcycle world for you to check out. Please check them out if you got time, if you're interested. And I really appreciate you watching this, and we're gonna see you guys on the next video.